Today we're going to look at how to create an assessment using Google Forms. So I'm here in my Google Drive, and the first thing I need to do is to create a new Google Forms file. So I'm going to go to New, and then More, and select Google Forms. And that'll open up a new Google Forms file in a new tab in my web browser. Now before we get started with questions, it's a good idea to rename your Google form. So we'll call this one Quiz 1. And once you've given your Google form a name, it's a good idea to move it to the appropriate location in your Google Drive where you would like to save it. So I'm going to click on the folder icon here to move my file, and then choose Move This Item. And we can select the desired folder from there. And then click Move here to move the file. Now we're ready to add questions to our assessment. By default, you start with one question in your Google form, but you can add more by clicking on the plus icon over on the right-hand side of your browser window. And we can add as many questions as we need to. If you want to delete questions, click on the question box and then click the trash icon to delete. You can also drag and move questions around. So if you want question 3 to become question 2, you can click and drag to reorder the questions as needed. To add text to your questions, you can click and add a prompt. We're going to go with, what day of the week is it today? And then I'm in multiple choice right now as my question type. If we want to change the question type, we can simply click on this drop-down menu and choose from short answer or paragraph length responses. You can also do checkboxes if you want to have more than one correct response, or a drop-down menu. We're going to go with multiple choice right now, and we can click to add answers. Oh, notice that I just added another response, but it was an other response. This would be a case where you would want to give respondents a little bit of freedom to add something that's not already part of the multiple choice listing. So I'm going to delete that. I actually wanted to click add option, not add other. And we'll go just through Friday here. So now I have a question ready to go, multiple choice question. Once you have your questions set, you have some options with respect to the individual questions. You can choose to make them required questions. Making a question required means that a student will have to answer it before submitting their assessment. We can also choose to add media. You can add images or videos to questions if you like as well. Now, by default, a Google Forms file is not a quiz. So right now I have what appears to be a quiz question. I've named the file as a quiz, but this is not actually an active quiz within Google Forms. I won't be able to collect data. I will be able to collect data, but I won't be able to grade the responses of students as if we would with a traditional quiz. So in order to make this Google Forms file a quiz, we need to go to the settings button up here. It looks like a gear. And that brings up your settings menu. We want to click on the quizzes tab. And then we want to choose to make this Google form a quiz. Now, once you've made the form a quiz, there are some options available to you. You can choose to release grades to students immediately after submission. This would be something that would most likely be useful for formative assessments. For other types of assessments, you may want to choose to release grades later after manual review, just to perhaps make sure that there have been no mistakes, or for other purposes as far as data analysis go, that could be a useful option to you as well. Now, notice right now I've chosen immediately to release grades to students after submission. There are some options in this case. You can allow students to see which questions they have missed, to see the correct answers for those questions, and to see the point values. So you can sort of fine-tune how students interact with the form within this settings menu. So we're going to choose to release grades immediately after submission. So perhaps this is a formative assessment that we're using in class. And I'm going to allow my response to see which questions they've missed. I'm going to allow them to see the correct answers to those questions. I think that that would be something that would be useful in the case of a formative assessment so students can reflect on their learning. And then, point values, that's kind of up to you. We'll go ahead and select that for now as well so we can take a look at what it looks like within Google Forms. And then we're going to hit Save. So now I have an active quiz, but we're not quite ready to administer this assessment to students. We have to first set up our answer key. It wouldn't make much sense to administer this form without Google Forms knowing what the correct answers are. So I'm going to click in my question box down here in the bottom left on Answer Key. And this is going to allow me to select the correct answer and assign point values. We can even give feedback if we want. But let's pick our correct answer here first. What day of the week is it? Today is Thursday. And we'll make this a 1-point question. And then, as I said, you can also add feedback here as well for both incorrect and correct answers. So let's say for an incorrect answer, we say try again. And for a correct answer, we say good job. And save. So now I have assigned point values as well as a correct answer, and I have given feedback for both correct and incorrect answers. So once we've set up our answer key, we want to go back to the question. So we're going to click down here in the bottom left on Edit Question. That takes us back to the original question in the Google form. And now we're ready to administer our quiz to students. So now that I have my answer key and point values set, I'm ready to send the quiz to students. So we'll go back up to the top of our window and we're going to go to the Send button. And actually before you click Send, you might want to take a look at what your assessment's going to look like from the student perspective. There's an option here. You can click on the Preview button, looks like an eyeball, and that'll open up a new tab that shows you what your live Google form looks like. So this is what it's going to look like from the student or user end. So not a bad idea to use the Preview button to take a look at what your quiz will look like for students before you send it out. But when you're ready to send that quiz out, we're going to click on the Send button. And we have a couple of options here. We can send via email, or we can create a link. I like to shorten the link that can be sent to students or posted to a course management system or a course website. We also can embed using HTML code, and you can fine-tune the size of the embedded quiz as well. So there's some options that are available to you here as well. For now, I'm gonna choose just a link. So here's my link, and then we can copy that particular link to send to our students. So this is what the quiz looks like from the student's point of view. We had copied our link. Perhaps we've posted that link to the website, class website or course management system. The students clicked on the link. They've opened up the live quiz. This is what they're going to see. Now you'll remember that we had set both point values, 1 point for the question, correct answer, and specific feedback for our quiz, so the students will know after they submit, whether they got the question right or wrong, and they'll get some specific feedback on correct or incorrect answers as well. So let's go ahead and answer this question correctly. The student will hit Submit. And now notice that they have an option to view their score. So if they click on View Their Score in a new tab, we see the question. We see that we've gotten it correct, 1 out of 1 point. And we also have our feedback here, specific feedback. Good job for getting the question correct. So once you've received some responses from your students, you can analyze the data within Google Forms. We're going to go ahead and click on the Responses tab here in our Google Forms window. And we can look at individual results That's what we're looking at right now. So here was the first person to take the quiz, the second, the third, and the fourth. Or we can look at a summary of the results. And this will give us average and median values as well as a range of scores. And we see the statistical breakdown here as well for each of the individual responses. We can also, within this responses section of the Google form, choose whether or not we're continuing to accept responses to the quiz. So if you want to cut the quiz off to your students, you can just choose to stop accepting responses. And you can go back and turn it back on if you want at any point here as well. Now you also have the option to export your data into a Google Sheet. If you click on the Google Sheets icon here, you can create a spreadsheet of your data. And you can select an existing spreadsheet to which you export your data if you want, or you can create a new spreadsheet and give it a title. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the default name that's given here, Quiz 1 Responses, and we'll create that file. And that opens up a Google Sheet with information about the responses to your Google form. You'll notice in this case there is a timestamp, so if you're looking at due dates, this is one way you can keep track of when students have completed their work. You have a score and you have the response to the question. But there's no information about the names of students. There's no unique identifier here based on the way we've set up the quiz. So perhaps the quiz that we've created is just being used as a formative tool for students. If we want to collect that specific data as to which students go with which responses, which you would need to do if you were doing a summative assessment or most formative assessments, we need to go back to the settings menu. So again, we'll click on the gear here, and under the general tab here, we can choose to collect email addresses. There are other ways of going about this as well, but if you know your students' email addresses, this is probably the easiest way to do so. Here's another option though, so let's click cancel. We can simply add another question to our quiz. So let's click on the add question button, and we're going to move that question to be the first question of the quiz. And then very simply, we can do a short answer question. We can ask, what is your name? Now, as far as answer key goes for this one, there is not going to be a correct answer. There's not going to be a point value, so we're not going to make this part of the quiz in terms of grading or in terms of point values, but we would probably want to make that a required question so that you don't have students who go to take the quiz and forget to add their name. So a few options there as far as collecting student names, student information. There are other options as well that we might explore at a later time. One last thing to take a look at here before we finish up. If you teach a course with multiple teachers, you can add collaborators to your Google Forms assessments. This is done similar to what we do to give the quiz to students administer the quiz to students. We click on the send button in the upper right-hand corner. And we have an option down here in the bottom left to add collaborators. So in this case, you can either add using link sharing, or if you know specific email addresses, you can invite people. This is something that you'll want to be careful about. If you invite collaborators to a particular form and they use the same file to collect data from their students, all of the data will go to the same spreadsheet. It will be collected in the same Google form. So you might, in some cases, want to encourage your colleagues to create their own copy. So this is a way to share the form and allow for editing of the form if you're collecting group data. Collecting individual class data, in most cases, you will want each teacher to have their own copy of the form so that they can keep their student data separate from the group. But there are lots of options that are available within the Google ecosystem. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in for our short series on Google Forms, and I hope to see you next time.